Hey guys, Andrew Esquivel here, back with another review, and today I'm going to be reviewing a product courtesy of a company called UNITEK. Now what we have here is a hard drive or SSD docking station that converts from SATA 3.0 over to USB 3.0. It can hold two different drives and performs two different functions. One, these can be read and write drives, or you can clone one drive onto another, exactly one drive to another. And this can be done offline without you having to plug it into a computer. So let's take a quick walk around the device. Over here on the front we have the clone hard drive function button, which we'll be going over in detail later on in the review. Turning it around, you can see the entire thing is wrapped in aluminum. On the back we have our USB 3.0 port, our power connection, and the on-off button. Bring it back around to the front. Now let's talk about the top. The top can accommodate 2.5-inch drives and 3.5-inch drives. 2.5-inch simply slide down through this hole that's been made and connects via the SATA connections. Or if you have 3.5-inch drives, this folds down so that it can accommodate the larger drives. Really quick, just to demonstrate, we'll take a 2.5-inch drive, slide it on down. The thing about what you'll notice right away is it's not very flush, so it takes a moment to figure out exactly where the connections are. Once it's connected, it should stay in place. Now let's talk about the bigger drive. As I said before, this folds down, slides into place, and we now have both drives in place. There's no audible or tactile feedback when doing this. You'll just have to trust your own intuition when putting it in. Now that being said, when you do plug everything up together and you turn the power on, you can confirm that the devices, or the drives in this case, are spinning up and functional, because as you'll notice over here we have A and B, and with that we have A and B indicators for each drive. So, or for both drives here, it'll correspond to whichever slot you've put it in, and it'll let you know that everything is hooked up and spinning up and whatnot. Okay, so here is the scenario. I have two hard drives, one of each size, plugged into the hard drive docking station. I've got power connected to it. It's not turned on at the moment. The USB 3.0 cable has been connected to a USB 3.0 slot on my computer that is running Windows 10 Professional. So let's go ahead and turn on the device, and you'll be able to hear the drives spinning up. Hard drives nowadays really aren't as loud as they used to be. So if you need to confirm that they are plugged in and spinning up, once again, as I said before, there are corresponding lights for both the A and B slot that will let you know when data is being used, or at least turned on. So we have confirmation that both A and B have spun up, and we're going to go look at the computer and show you that it's detecting. Alright, so I have named the drives that we are working with 2.5 and 3.5 respectively, drive F and drive V. You can see here plainly on my computer. So, first we're going to transfer some data to the 2.5-inch drive, and then we are going to clone that data offline without the use of the computer. We have a file that is 27.8 gigabytes, and we're simply just going to drag and drop to copy. And this will take a little bit of time because this is a 2.5-inch laptop hard drive. Now, of course, this device also supports solid-state drives, which, if you're using a solid-state drive, it's going to work a lot faster. Now, as I was saying before, when the drive that you're using is in use, it will blink just like the hard drive light on your computer, indicating that there is data being transferred to or from the device. And just for reference, I want to show you guys that you can transfer files to both drives simultaneously. As you can see here, both drives are working hard, writing data to them, and the computer here shows how fast the data is being written on them. Okay, so here is the scenario. We have the 2.5-inch drive with about 20 some odd gigs of data, and we have the 3.5-inch drive with no data. What we're going to do is clone the data from the 2.5-inch drive to the 3.5-inch drive. In order to do that, this means we're going to have to shut this device off first. And we're going to unplug it from the computer because we're going to clone it offline. Now there's a very good reason why I'm doing this first, and that's because I need to remove these drives, and there's a very good reason for that, and I'll explain in just a second. Now I'm sure you notice that the 2.5-inch drive is in the back, and the 3.5-inch drive is in the front, and it all has to do with these corresponding letters. You see, when you do an offline clone, it takes the drive from drive A and clones all of the data and partition information to drive B. And it's also important that we do it like this because drive A is only about 100 gigabytes, while drive B is 1 terabyte. It wouldn't work the other way around. In order to successfully clone the drive you are cloning to must be at least or exceed the amount of capacity than the drive that you are trying to clone. And the reason for that is because you're not just transferring data. This isn't a simple, I'm going to copy-paste data. This is a straight up, we are cloning the partition all the way to the signature verification. So that's why you can't clone a terabyte to a 100 gig drive. 1 terabyte doesn't fit on 100 gigs, but 100 gigs does fit on a terabyte, and that's why we have to do it this way. I'll show you in a minute after we got this going, and once it's completed on the computer, what that looks like when I talk about partition cloning. For right now, we're going to, even more so, just for proof of concept, take out the USB cable entirely, and we're going to turn on the device. Now we have our indicator lights to help us know that everything is going as it should. You can hear everything spinning up. And what we're going to do is clone the device, or the drive A, over to drive B. In order to do that, you press and hold this for about 3 seconds, and then you get this little notification right here on the 4 squared button. And when it is lit up, you press it again, and the cloning process begins. So let's get that little thing lit up again, then press one more time, and now we are cloning. You'll see that it's separated into 4 different sections: 25, 50, 75, and 100%. These are little indicators to let you know how far along the process of cloning is currently at. So, at this point, we need to let the drives do their thing, depending on how fast your drives are, especially if you're using SSDs, it'll go much, much faster. But because we're using older hard drives here, it's going to take a while. Alright, so it's been about an hour or so now, and as you can see by looking at the indication lights, the cloning process has completed itself. And you'll see the power light is not on, or it blinks more or less. And that's because it goes into kind of a sleep mode when it's finished, so that way the drives aren't still spinning when everything is done. So, let's turn it back off, and then turn it back on, plug the USB cable, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're on Windows. Now, there is a little issue when it comes to cloning a hard drive if you don't know what you're doing. See, we have both hard drives that have the exact same partition information, allocation per partition, format, etc. So, when you go back into Windows, you'll only see one of the drives. Generally speaking, the drive that was the one that had the source information for the clone. And you'll see my 3.5-inch drive is nowhere to be found. I'm going to show you where exactly it is. Down here at the Start menu, right-click on it, and then search up to Disk Management. Once you've entered Disk Management, you'll be able to see all the volumes of the hard drives and all the partitions, etc. that you wouldn't be able to see normally. In this case, we are going to scroll down, and we see that we have the 1 terabyte drive, and 838 gigs of it is unallocated, but it cloned the partition that was 92.97 gigs from the original hard drive, and since the original hard drive is technically a little less than 100 gigs, that's what it cloned as. Now, right here, you'll see this little red mark, and that is a problem because the disk is offline. It says right here, offline. The disk is offline because it has a signature collision with another disk that is online. In other words, the computer sees 2 hard drives with the exact same signature, and it creates an issue. So in order to get around this, if you want to see that drive back online again, you got to go over here, right-click on it, and click Online. And then when you do that, it will come back online, and you'll be able to see it once again. However, it'll look the exact same thing because this is the only partition that it cloned. Now, if you have multiple partitions, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work, but long story short, it is a clone to the very last detail, to the point where it causes problems if you try to run both at the same time. Now, let's say you didn't want it to be a clone anymore. Over in disk management, you could go ahead and, well, format the drive if you wish. And from there, as long as it's different, you'll see different partitions. And the partitions will show up once you create them, and you should be golden again. But long story short, yes, the device does work. Yes, you have to understand what it means to have a cloned hard drive. Okay, it's not a file transfer. It is a clone of the partition. Everything down to the partition signature, which causes problems. Which is why when you load it back up, you don't see both drives in Windows, and you have to go into disk management in order to actually see it and see that it's offline. So, with that being said, all in all, the product does work as intended. You can transfer files to it, you can run 2 hard drives at the same time, and yes, you can clone your hard drive without any software, which is great if you're switching from a hard drive to an SSD, for instance. If you want to upgrade your drive, this makes it very simple and you don't need any cumbersome software. This is all hardware based, which is actually pretty neat. It's the first time I've seen a hardware based cloning system that isn't running any sort of RAID system like RAID 1. So thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, show your friends, check out my other videos. I got plenty of them. As always, I'll see you next time.